Welcome, everybody, on behalf of the Holocaust Museum LA. My name is Michael Morgenstern, and I'm an educator at the museum. And this afternoon, you have the honor and privilege of listening to Engelina Billauer, a Holocaust survivor from Germany who will share her story with you. And afterwards, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Before we begin, I would like to share a quick history of our museum. Holocaust Museum LA was founded in the early 1960s by a group of Holocaust survivors who wanted to make sure that the world would always remember and learn from this tragic history. They did this at a time in the early 1960s when most people weren't yet ready to learn about the Holocaust, but thanks to their courage and foresight of this group of survivors, we have what became the first and oldest Holocaust museum in the United States, always with a mission to commemorate, educate, and inspire future generations. We can't do the work that we do today without our survivor community, who still on a regular basis shares their stories with groups to make sure that future generations will always remember and learn. Engelina, thank you so much for joining us today. After Engelina shares her story, you'll have a chance to ask questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and thank you, Engelina, and you may begin when you're ready.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am a Holocaust survivor. I was born in Berlin, Germany. We lived in an apartment house. We had no problem until Hitler came to power. As soon as he came to power, he made no secret his plan was to get rid of Jews. He had all kinds of laws that we had to obey. But it got worse and worse until 1938, the famous Kristallnacht, when they burned down all synagogues, damaged all Jewish stores. And a year later, we had to wear the yellow star on our coat on our outside when we were in the streets. And it got worse and worse until 1940, when they started deportations. They came, in my case, they came to our apartment in the middle of the night and told us to come with them. I had my sister, my brother had committed suicide before, and we had no choice but to follow them. By public transportation, they took us to one of the synagogues that was not burned. When we entered, we saw the SS men and women sitting on the bar. And as soon as we entered, they called us and wanted to make sure that we're Jewish because we didn't look Jewish. And Hitler always said Jews are with dark hair, long noses. But we were blonde, blue-eyed, so nobody thought that we were Jewish. But we came into the synagogues. It was full of people, all ages, sitting on the luggage, and we all didn't know what's going to happen to us. We were sitting there for 3 days, didn't get anything to eat or to drink, and after 3 days, they took the whole group, we were about 1,000 people. They made us march through the city of Berlin people in the streets were happy. Oh, Hitler promised we get rid of the Jews, and now we see he doesn't. They put us on a train, and the train left. We had no idea where we're going. I was 15 years old. I had my sister who was 6 years older than me, and our parents who didn't hear and didn't speak. They only had sign language. And I learned sign language when I was a small child. That's why. So we went through the city of Berlin to a railway station, and the train left. We had no idea where we are going or what's going to happen. I was 15 years old, so I had no idea of the directions or anything. But the grown-ups realized that we are not going, we are going more to the east of Europe. On October 1st, the train stopped in Estonia on an empty field, only the train. We were told to leave the train and stand in line. We did what we were told. We had a long line, 1,000 people. The head on the head was as men and women, and they would decide probably by age. And that you go right, you go left. We saw that our parents are going to the other side than we are. And we knew they don't understand what's going on. And we saw they're going on a bus. So my sister and I rushed over to the bus and wanted to enter that, but they told us, no, you can walk. And we said, no, we have to be with our parents. And they said, no, you'll meet them later. But we never met our parents again. Most of the group was taken away, and we later found out that they were all killed, including our parents. We were put on a train again and went to Estonia. When we got off the train, we were taken to the first concentration camp. We were only 100 women left. The others, they had taken care of and murdered them. But we didn't realize it first. But it didn't take us long to realize that that's what happened to the rest of the people. We marched to a big empty field with 2 barracks. One barrack, they told us to go in. There was nothing there, wooden floors, wooden beds. And we were told to go to sleep. The morning, we were told to go to the second barrack, where they had all the luggage from the other people. We had to unpack. Now, people had good stuff, even food, but you couldn't take anything, because when you left, they would check you. And if they found anything on you, they would kill you right on the spot. we came to this first concentration camp, and we were told to go to the other barrack where the clothes was from all the people that they had arrested. And we had to unpack and assort all the stuff which they probably gave away. After a while, we were taken to a barrack with wooden floors, wooden beds, and we are told to go to bed in these wooden beds, and there were only 100 women left. First, we didn't realize what happened to the others, but we were very soon capable of realizing that the rest of them, including our parents, were killed. We were marched more to the east into the first concentration camp. From the 1,000 people, there were only 100 left. And we were taken to a barrack. There's nothing there. We stayed there overnight. And then the next day, they took us on a train again and took us closer to the east. And we ended up in Estonia. We arrived in Estonia, and they drove us by bus to a real old-fashioned prison. Everything in the dark. We came to the prison, a real old-fashioned prison. We were only 100 women left, and we had to enter the prison, real old-fashioned. And they took us there into a more modern part, and we had to stand in line, and then the SS women would count 10, push you into a room until they had all 110 rooms. Then the lights went on, and we saw we were in a prison cell. And there were 7 beds against the wall, but we were 10. So we let the elderly ladies have the beds, and we 3 young ones slept on the floor. During the night, they would open this little iron window in the door to check on us. And in the morning, when we came out, they took us down to the yard, and we saw a German civilian. He told us that he works for a German company, that we're going to work for them. If 1 runs away, 10 will be shot. They marched us to the city of Riga, which is the capital of Estonia. And people looked, but nobody said anything. And they took us to a very destroyed shipyard. We assume that the Russians had destroyed it. So we had to clean. We were taken 10 to a group. Every group was headed by a German, and we had to clean up. Our group, we had a German civilian who was the only German in all these years who was civil to us. We recommended him to the state of Israel, and when that started to begin. And but he had died already, but we recommended that he was a good guy. So they honored him in Israel. But he was dead. They were all dead already, so they didn't know anything about them. We cleaned the shipyard, we lived in the prison, and every morning we were taken from the cells down to the shipyard to clean up. It was heavy work, but we had no choice. We had to do what we were told. So every morning out of the prison, and every evening back to prison. This went on for quite a while until we had the shipyard cleaned up. Then they divided us in groups again, each group headed by a German civilian. They shaved our heads, and we had to work again on the shipyard, which was heavy work, but we did it because we had no choice. After a few months in prison, they took us out on a train and took us closer to the Russian border, to another concentration camp. The concentration camps were only women. Women and men were always separated. Children didn't exist. They had killed them all already. So we worked on the shipyard until it was all cleaned up. And one day they took us out of prison on a train, and the train went further east to the Russian border. We arrived somewhere near the Russian border, were taken off the train, and were marched to an open field with a big concentration camp. Like I said, women and men were always separated. Children didn't exist anymore. The concentration camp was very poor. There was nothing. They had shaved our heads, and they marched us to work on the shipyard again until it was all cleaned up. After we cleaned up the shipyard, we went back to prison, and one day they let us out of prison again, put us on a train, and we went further east to another concentration camp. Now, concentration camps were really, really the worst you could expect. We had to work all kinds of work, cleaning the roads. And we had never had medical care. We only had to obey what the SS women told us to do, which was not easy. We had to obey them. And if we didn't, they just took people and killed them. This went on for quite a while. We worked on the shipyard. In the evening, we were taken back to the prison. That went on for a while until on one day, they took us out of prison, put us on a train again, and went further to the east to a really miserable concentration camp. And our group, whoever was still alive, we were in concentration camps for 3 years in 7 concentration camps. No food, no medical care, just working hard, obeying the SS women. And that went on for quite a while too. But then when the war, when the situation became a little harder, the Russians came closer. So they decided to take us back to Germany. Again on a train, they took us to the city where the ship was. And because it was critical already for the Germans, they loaded the Germans on the ship first on top. And a few days later, they took us all on the bottom on the ship, and the ship started moving towards Germany. The Germans on top and we Jews on the bottom. They came down once a day to look who was dead, who they thought was going to die. And they took those people and threw them into the ocean. One day, finally, we landed in Germany. We were taken to another concentration camp, which we heard about. The name was Stutthof. And we started living again in concentration camps without medical care, without real food. And that went on for a little while. Then they decided, like I said, to take us back to Germany. When we arrived in Germany, they put us into another concentration camp. The 3 years that we were I was in camp, always with my sister though, we were in many concentration camps. Never have medical care or any service for helping us to live. People died and they just dropped them off somewhere. When we finally landed in Germany, we went to another concentration camp. And in that concentration camp, again, no food and no medical care, nothing. After a while in this concentration camp, they decided to take us back to Germany. So again, we went to a ship, and first they took the Germans on top of the ship, and after that, they took us on the bottom and drove us to Germany. We landed in Germany, and they took us to another concentration camp by the name of Bergen Belsen. We had been in several camps, but we never saw anything like Bergen Belsen. Dead bodies, people that are not dead, lying around. All we had to do was pick up the dead bodies and the people they thought was too sick and throw them into the ocean. We had to continue working hard. They shaved our heads, and we came to Bergen Belsen, which was the worst we had ever seen. And we had to start working, picking up dead bodies. Or they made us pick up people that were not dead yet and throw them all into the ocean. It was already the end of 44, beginning of 45. On April 15, 1945, we saw an army tank coming in. We didn't know what it was, but they announced they're the British Army and they're there to liberate us. We were all excited. The British Army was shocked what they saw. They took people that are still able to get around. My sister and I and other people were among them. And they took us a little further away to the big houses where the Germans had lived. And they took us there and put us into rooms, separating us by nationality. So every nationality had another room and finally had a bed to ourselves. The British and Swedish doctors came, went from room to room to look who was sick. Now in our room, I was sick and one of my friends. They took us into an ambulance and drove us to the big houses next door where the Germans had lived and where they had made a hospital and put us there into hospitals, dividing us by nationality. Then the doctors went from room to room, took out who was room, put us into ambulances, and drove us to the big buildings that they had made hospitals. The British and Swedish doctors came from room to room, took out who was sick, took us to the big buildings which they had made a hospital, and then the doctors went from room to room, took out who was sick, and took us to the big houses nearby where they had made hospitals. So finally, we got something to eat. We had medical care. And they had made a displaced person camp in these big buildings nearby. So after they picked the sick people that got better, they took us to this displaced person camp. No, people from all different camps came to look for relatives, for friends, for anybody. But my sister and I, we knew that nobody would come to look for us. But people from different camps came to this displaced person camp to look if they find somebody they know. But we knew that we can't expect anybody to look for us. But among the people that came was a gentleman. He's the first person who told us about Auschwitz. He was also from Berlin. My sister knew him from Berlin, and he told us that he was in Auschwitz, the whole transport of people. Most of them were taken to the gas chambers, including his wife and his child. Only a small group they let live and put them in a camp nearby. There they worked hard, but again, we finally got medical care. One day, the British burned down Bergen Belsen camp, and they took the women that were still alive and took us to the displaced person camp, where people came from all over to look. One day, a gentleman came in also from Berlin. My sister knew him from Berlin because he was always active in Jewish organizations, and he's the one who told us about Auschwitz and how many people were killed in Auschwitz, including his wife and his child. He and another few men were taken nearby to a factory to work. The factory was IG Farben. And IG Farben is the company that produced the gas for the gas chambers. So a few men came to us, told us about Auschwitz, and the British started to treat us human. But we all, we had met 3 other girls also from Germany who went through the same thing we did, and we became very friendly, and we spent the rest of our lives together in Germany. My sister and this gentleman got married, and he became more active in the youth organization and survivor groups, and became very active. And we decided we go back to Lübeck in Germany. And my sister and him got married. The Germans gave us a house, which was previously owned by a Jewish family that didn't come back. They gave us a house. We were thrilled. It had a backyard and a front. And we moved into this house. And the Germans, started to treat us more human. And the British and Swedish, we got the food and medical care. And we had a little more of a normal life. But like I said, my sister and this gentleman got married, and we planned to go to, not to Germany, we always planned to go to the United States. But when the state of Israel was declared, they, they took a group of people. They had brought more people from different camps, including a group from Poland. Among them was a gentleman who was from Warsaw, Poland, had a jewelry store. Of course, the Germans, when they invaded that his jewelry store, stole all the jewelry. And among them was a gentleman from Poland who later became my father-in-law. He had two sons. One, his wife was killed. One of his sons was running away to Russia. Luckily, they didn't kill anybody there. They put them also in camps, but with better treatments than the Germans had in concentration camps. When the state of Israel was declared, my father-in-law, he wasn't then, but this gentleman decided to move to Israel. Now, the young man, his son, he wanted to go with his father, but they told him, no, you're young, you can go illegal. So his father said, I don't want you to go illegal because you went through so much. You wait till you get official trip to Israel. So this group all left for Israel, and he moved into the house with us. We became very friendly. We always had parties. We were dancing. And after his father left for Israel, he moved into the house. We became more friendly. We had parties. He was a good dancer. I would dance. We had really a nice time. But we knew that we don't want to stay in Germany. This young man, we became very friendly. He knew that I would never separate from my sister and that we all planned to go to the United States, but we hadn't heard yet from the Americans. But for him, it was no question to stay with me, to go to the United States. So finally, we got the visa to come to the United States. But before that, he told me, let's go to Israel. Let me see my family that went to Israel before it was Israel. Let me go and see them before I go with you to America. I agreed. We flew to Israel. I can tell you the feeling you have after you were treated like slaves. You arrive in Israel. They come on board. They welcome you. You go to the city. Everybody is welcoming you. We lived with my father-in-law who had married another survivor woman. But my father-in-law knew that I want to go to the United States. And his son, my future husband too. But so he said, you know, you go to the United States, but let me at least see you're getting married. So we got married in Tel Aviv, Israel, on February 4th, 1950. And after the wedding, we went back to Germany when we got the papers to come to the United States. We came to the United States with an airplane that had only pregnant women or babies. Now, I had already a 6-week-old baby, so we were allowed to go on that plane too. We arrived, no jet planes, the planes, you know, they stopped a few times in different places. We finally arrived in New York. We also knew that the organizations had organized for us to go to Stockton, California. But when we arrived in New York and our friends said, why do you want to go to Stockton? You don't know anybody there. Stay in New York and we will help. So we decided they're right. And we took our 6-week-old baby and we went with some other survivors who lived in the Bronx. We went with them to their apartment in the Bronx on the 4th floor, no elevator, no, but we lived with them for a few. But the neighbors all were very, very nice, and they organized an apartment for us in the building, in the Bronx. On the ground floor, just one bedroom, no kitchen. The living room on one wall was the kitchen. We were happy that we are finally free and living in the United States. A few months later, my sister came with 2 children and her husband, and we all lived in this 1-bedroom apartment. But we also had met an American soldier who had helped us a lot. So he helped us to find an apartment, a bigger apartment in the building, and he helped us in any way he could. We finally also got a apartment, and he arranged for us to move into this apartment. Neighbors were all so nice, and they found out that my husband had learned watchmaking. So they organized for him to get a job as a watchmaker. So I went by subway, which of course I got lost many times, but I finally got it. And I went to a factory and they gave me broken watches. I took them back to the Bronx. My husband repaired them. And then I brought the repaired watches back to the factory in Manhattan. That went on for quite a while. And we were happy. We were in the United States. My sister was here with her children and husband. And we enjoyed that we finally free like human beings. And we lived very comfortable. And my sister had 2 children. I had by then another boy. Our children went to public school, to junior high school, and then it came to high school. My older son wanted to go to high school in California, but he said, no, I said, no, you go to high school in New York, and after that, we'll see. So he finished junior high school in New York, and then I let him go to California to high school. My younger son came to that age where he also insisted to go to California to school. My sons were always very close, though they're 6 years apart, but we let him go to California too. And we lived in New York. After a while, our sons insisted that we come to California too, because we, a family, we should be together. And we decided they're right, and we sold our business, we got rid of our apartment, and we drove cross country to California. Both our sons had become chiropractors and had an office. We went to the office to say hello. We were very proud that they accomplished something. And my husband said, yeah, but what should I do now? I have to make a living. So our son said, don't worry, we took care of that. You will be our boss. You will be our office manager, and mom will be the secretary. My husband said, but I don't speak English. They said, don't worry. The factories you call, they all don't speak, they all speak Spanish. And you will learn Spanish. And he did. But after a while, when our sons insisted we should come out too, we sold our business and we drove cross country to our sons. In the beginning, we lived with our sons, but after a while, the American soldier that we had met found an apartment for us in Queens. So we moved to Queens in a house. We were happy that we live now like human beings and being near our sons. And by then our sons had already children. We were thrilled about our grandchildren. So we lived in California and we were very happy. And that's how we learned to live in California. We worked. My husband learned Spanish and we worked for our sons and we enjoyed doing that. But when our sons moved to California, insisted that we should come too. So we thought about it and we decided they're right, and we moved to California too. The American soldier we had met, who was always helpful, had gotten an apartment for us, and we lived in an apartment, and we were happy that we are now close to our sons, know our grandchildren, and pretty soon we know our great-grandchildren. My husband continued working as a watchmaker, and I did the delivery both ways. This was our life now, and we were very happy about it. We met our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and we loved living in LA, actually Culver City. And that's how we lived in Culver City. We worked for our sons, and we were very happy. Both our sons got married, had children, we had now grandchildren, and we got together all the time. Our sons had the chiropractic office, and our boys decided we should work for them. So that meant we have to come to California, and that's what we did. My husband worked as a manager, and I was secretary. And we were happy. We got together all the time. We enjoyed our grandchildren. We even lived to see our great-grandchildren. And they're all boys. And they're all very involved in sports. We went to every sport they took part. One of our grandsons had the idea to learn surfing. We didn't know what surfing is. He took us along. He showed us surfing. We were astonished how he surfs the big waves. But one day, unfortunately, he had an accident. The lifeguards went into the ocean to pick him up, took him to the hospital, and we were called, and we were told that he will never walk again. We were all upset, but we lived now nearby, so we could see our grandson all the time. He has a caregiver, and we watch him surfing. He enjoyed it so much that one day he decided he will organize a group for handicapped people that they will be able to surf and help other people that are injured to surf. So he organized a group, called it Life Rolls On, made a very big company from it. People, invalids, come to the ocean to surf, and it became a very famous group. We always go to watch, and there's always people helping the injured people to and that's our life now. Unfortunately, 6 years ago, my husband died of cancer and passed away. but I continue watching my grandson surfing. This group became more famous. I always go to watch. And my grandsons both had children, babies. I enjoyed being with them. And that's my life now. My pleasure is to see them surfing, people going to the ocean to help these invalid people to surf. He became very famous, his group. And unfortunately, my husband died. So I live. First, they put me into a home. But after my husband died, my older son came and said, I should come to live with him. So I live now with my older son in a house. Jesse, my grandson, has a house right next door. So I have a chance to see them all. And that's my life today. I do speak my story in different groups. And I should be, and I am happy the way it is right now. I talk my story to different groups. I think it's very important that people know about the Holocaust, and that's how it is right now. And that's my story. If you have any questions, be my guest.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. If anybody has any questions, those watching on Zoom can use the Q&A box, and those watching on Facebook can use the comments section, and we will get through as many questions as possible.
Thank you.
First question, when did you start sharing your story with your children?
Actually, as soon as they were old enough to understand, because they couldn't understand that they don't have grandparents. So I told them what happened. And all our friends who are survivors, you know, when we got together, we always come back telling stories from concentration camps. So they heard it, so they know.
What do you remember about your parents and their personalities or your life before this happened?
Yeah, look, they couldn't hear and they couldn't speak. So as a young child, I already learned sign language, and I thought there was nothing wrong with that I speak sign language. When they had to go to official offices, I would go and speak for them.
Share with us what happened to your sister?
My sister died a couple of years ago of a rare disease, unfortunately. And my girlfriends, yes, they all passed away too. I'm the only one from our group. And that's more of the reason for me to tell the story, because it's the story from all our friends.
And you kept in touch with this group of friends. You all stayed.
Unfortunately, oh yes, they all moved to New York, and we always got together. But in the meantime, they all died. So it's more my duty to tell the story. I think they would be very proud that I do that, because I used to be very shy.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate so much everything that you do for our community by sharing your story on such a regular basis, because you're speaking to people online. When you do this, you can reach people all over the world. And so you should do this on such a regular basis. So we appreciate it so much.
I'm glad.
And we do have a few more questions. When you first came to the United States, can you please share with us what it was like to adjust to life here and to learning English?
I was so thrilled that I'm finally in the United States. And I did go to school to learn English. All my friends passed away, but every Sunday, the one we're always together has a son, and he calls me every Sunday.
For sharing that. Do you know what, were you able to keep in touch with the American soldier who helped your family?
Oh yes, he was a famous lawyer, but in the meantime, he passed away too.
Thank you. Do you remember when you first came to the United States, if you mentioned that you were in a neighborhood with other survivors, did you talk to them at first? And do you remember if they talked to you right away, or did it take you all a little while to start speaking with each other about what you went through?
Yeah. So we got together, we always talked about it.
So you then spoke about it pretty early on, even though so many survivors waited a little bit, or in some cases quite a while. And today, are you active with any survivor groups?
Actually, no. In New York, I did. We had a group of survivors, Bergen Belsen, but here I don't know anybody.
Thank you for sharing. To conclude, I first want to let you know that so many people are typing in comments thanking you for sharing your story. And one of our viewers said, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story. It was an honor. And we all thank you so much as well.
You're very welcome. I think I have to talk and let people know what happened.
Well, and we're so appreciative that you do this. Why, since you speak on such a regular basis, particularly to students, what do you like students, our future generations, to take away from learning your story?
They don't know anything about the Holocaust. I think it's my duty to tell them what the Holocaust was, and that 6 million Jews were killed by the Germans. And no children survived.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, not just today, but every time that you do this, because as I mentioned, you speak so frequently to students, and students listen to your story and learn this message. And of course, they learn more about the Holocaust and more in depth, but specifically, your family's resilience is really,
I'm glad I
of
do something for.
course. And to learn about your grandson as well and what your family has done, I know that it's a very meaningful experience for people to listen to your stories. So we thank you so much for everything you do for our community and for our future. And thank you, Sally, for your assistance. And we hope to welcome everyone to the museum at some point in the future. You can visit our website and also feel free to check our website for our virtual programs as well. We do have Survivor Talks every Thursday at 11 o'clock Pacific time, as well as other programs in person and virtual. So please follow our website and social media. Thank you so much, Engelina. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye. Have a good
Very
day.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Engelina.
Thank you.
Thank you.